to free yourself from the suffering of birth and death you have endured throughout eternity and obtain supreme enlightenment in this lifetime, you must awaken to the mystic truth which has always been within your life. The truth is Myoho Renge Kyo, the eternity of life, basics of Buddhism, page 72. I was raised in a Baptist home. My grandfather was a well-known pastor across the Golden Triangle. I was baptized at the age of 6 and grew up in the church. As a teenager, I sang in the choir and taught Sunday school. As an adult, I sang in 2 choirs. Changing my religion was not going to happen. I moved to Austin from the small town of Orange, Texas. I found a job at a private child care, and it was there where I met this amazing lady, Miss Sue Harris, who little did I know then would have such an impact in my life. Miss Sue and I have been friends for about 13 years. She was the cook at the school I taught. Every day for 13 years, she would bring our morning snack. I would talk to Miss Sue about the things that were bothering me in my life, and she would listen. Afterwards, she would say, "Margaret, you need to chant." I would reply, "Okay," out of respect for my friend, and that was that. Around that time, I got sick and had to go to the doctor and be tested. The MRI showed I had a patch of cancer in my right side. When the doctor told me this, I fell to my knees and I cried. I was devastated and scared. My boyfriend and my family tried to make me feel better, but I didn't. The next morning at work, I told Miss Sue. She said again, "Margaret, you need to chant." I smiled and said okay, but I went back to my everyday life. The cancer was removed and everything seemed okay again. Life at each moment encompasses both body and spirit. The oneness of body and mind, Basics of Buddhism, page 44. Okay. The time came when my boyfriend's only uncle had a stroke and his mom needed help with his care. Michael agreed with his mom to move back to Orange to help. When I returned home from work, Michael was waiting for me in the living room. There, full of sadness, he told me what was going on and asked me if I would move back home with him. Without a doubt, I said yes because I was madly in love with this man. Although I was giving up my job, my friends, a great apartment with a massive garden tub, things and people that meant a world to me. But for once, I found true love and complete happiness, and I didn't want to abandon him. Things was going well for us in Orange, but Michael knew I missed Austin and my friends. For the 16 months we were there, I had no contact with Miss Sue, since my phone was damaged and I had lost all my telephone numbers. Michael spoke to his mother and told her we wanted to go back to Austin. Before returning, we were married in the church we grew up. In Austin, we both got our jobs back, but it didn't last long. The child care business couldn't afford me, and I was given time off to look for another job. An ex-coworker told me of a position available at UT CDC. I applied and got the position, and after a year was asked to resign or be terminated. So I resigned my position. One morning while lying in bed and talking with Michael, I was surprised by getting a call from my longtime friend, Miss Sue. She asked me how I was doing, and I said, okay. She then asked me if I was chanting, and I said, no, Miss Sue, but I'll see you tomorrow morning. Life is indeed an elusive reality that transcends both the words and concepts of existent and non-existent. It is neither existent nor non-existent, yet exhibits the qualities of both. It is the mystic entity of the middle way. That is the reality of all things. The middle way, Basics of Buddhism, page 58. I read all this stuff. These books, I definitely read them. So on Monday morning, after my husband went to work, I went to Miss Sue's. I wanted to learn about this practice. Miss Sue was so excited. She and her husband, Jesse, started teaching me right away. They gave me newspaper books and showed me how to pronounce the words correctly. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. I started doing morning and evening ganyo, went to meetings, visited the SGI Center, did more meetings and evening gunyo. I read books and top of books. I was determined to strengthen my faith and practice. Miss Sue introduced me to her SGI friends. We visit Ike, who explained more about Buddhism. I chanted with Miss Hayes, Miss Yokisho, Miss Pokey, and many others. I continue to chant daily at Miss Sue's, sometimes with her and her husband Jesse. I chanted at Sarah's and Rob's on Thursdays and at Miss Sue's on Fridays as well as at home every day. I couldn't stop. Things were looking up for me. Michael got little raises on his check. Our rent went down. I was happy inside, and it seems as though a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I was telling everyone I met and people I knew about this practice. Buddhist teachers provide clear and practical answers to life fundamental questions. They offer profound insight on how to be happy as an individual and as a society. Basics of Buddhism, Pat Allwright, back cover. I wanted my Gohansons now. Miss Sue started with the process, but she knew I wasn't working and didn't want to ask me for the money. Miss Sue and Ike visit me. Ike knew how much I wanted it. When she started talking about the cost, I run over to the table where my Gohansen was going to be and pulled out a $50 bill. They looked at each other and Ike say, "I told you Margaret was going to be okay." I have recently and surprisingly received a $250 check from a referral to my sister's apartment complex. This could be called my first conspicuous benefit. I received my Gohansen at the Women's Division meeting at Rob's and Sarah's home on February 17, 2013. My new birthday, my new life, my journey had now begun. Michael and I decided we did not want any more children, so I scheduled an appointment to check on different methods of birth control. I had to be tested again, and the results showed I had severe dysplasia. The biopsy showed I had stage 4 cervical cancer. This time, I did not fall to my knees, nor started crying. I knew something my doctor didn't. I was chanting, and I was confident in my faith and practice. I realized I needed to chant more and was determined to change the course of my own destiny. I told Miss Sue and asked her and my new SGI family to chant for me and with me. 2 days before my surgery, the financial department called me to say my insurance had been canceled and to find out if I had any other insurance or way to pay the hospital. The rep noticed how affected I was by this news and offered to put me on their charity list. She needed documentations, and I immediately faxed my husband's last 3 months' bank statements. Thank you, Michael, for keeping things like that in order. Well, in the process of all that, Miss Sue said, "Margaret, let's chant." Mom was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. But she insisted, saying, "I love you and money can't go with me if I die. So let me do this for you." So I gave her the number. I drove back home chanting all the way. By the time I made it back, the phone rang again. It was the financial lady and said, "Miss Warnell, we'll see you in the morning." I found out much later that my hospital bill was $75,000. Have I not started my practice of Buddhism, I believe none of these benefits would have come my way. The morning of the surgery, the doctor told us the surgery was expected to last about an hour. He also talked about removing my ovaries if they were cancerous, which will require a stay at the hospital of 2 to 3 days. I wouldn't wake up after surgery. It seems the anesthesiologist overdosed me. I came through about 4 hours later, during which time my husband, my son, and my daughter-in-law were not told anything. When I awoke, the doctor told us they had to remove my 2 ovaries because I had ovarian cancer. I went back to sleep and Michael watched me. When I woke up, Michael and my family told me how scared they were. I sent Michael home to rest, telling him I was okay. The following day after surgery, the nurse brought me soft food, but I started to gag as soon as I smelled it. She said I needed to eat, but I couldn't. I couldn't eat or go to the restroom for 2 days. The doctor ordered some additional tests that didn't reveal much. The doctor wanted to wait another day, but still nothing happened. Miss Sue, Miss Hayes, and Pokey were visiting me daily, chanting for me and taking care of me since Michael had to work. My organs were not responding, and the doctor was considering more surgery to wake them up. I received a visit from another doctor since my main physician was in surgery. She said my vital signs were good. I was given a cup of warm prune juice, but although I drank it all, my conditions were still the same. Later the next afternoon, the hospital head doctor came to my room. He said, "I've come to save your life." Surprised, I asked him, "Save my life?" And he said, "Yes, if I don't get an IV in you with food, water, and medicine, you will surely die." He removed the IV already in me and said not to let anyone put an IV there again, right here. He poked my left hand until it swelled up but could not find a vein. Miss Sue protested of this treatment of me, and he ordered her and my little SGI ladies out of the room. I learned afterwards they went into another room to chant for me. The doctor then tried my right hand, still with no success. His phone rang and he said, "I'm going to save you first, then I'll leave." Then he said, "We will restore the OIV, but we'll restrain my arm to the bed in order for me not to move it." He had dropped all the used needles in my bed, and they were stuck in my bottom. I was crying in pain. When he left, Miss Sue, Miss Hayes, and Miss Pokey helped me out of bed, and Miss Sue used fresh linens to remake my bed. They stayed that day until very late, taking care of me and chanting. That evening, I began to put out this awful gas and became very embarrassed. But Miss Sue and my little lady started clapping and laughing while holding their noses. I couldn't stop. It looked as my organs were waking up, and I had to use the restroom. Miss Sue informed the nurse, who in turn informed the doctor. 6 or 7 days had passed from my surgery. I was on the right path to recovery. The next morning, the doctor put me in a soft diet. The nurse worked hard with me until I was able to have a full cup of chicken broth. I was able to report to Miss Sue and my little ladies that afternoon that I've been able to drink a full cup. By then, I was only able to move liquids and continued to be in constant pain. They chanted again with me, and soon afterwards, I was able to use the restroom. 2 days after, I was eating oatmeal, toast, and drinking juice. I was chanting twice daily and prayed for myself and others' good health and happiness and peace for our nation and in the world. In a few days, I was walking and talking with other patients at the hospital. My organs were working, and I was eating sufficiently to move my bowels. This is what the doctor needed to hear to send me home. My friend and SGI member, Deborah Fulton, picked me up and took me home. I love my SGI family, and I will always be grateful for each and every last one of you. Keep chanting for me as I grow in my practice, and I'll be chanting for you all. I can now say I welcome obstacles because I know how to defeat them and claim my benefit. When we practice Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism, we are training ourselves for life. We do not seek to avoid hardship, but to become so strong in ourselves so that we can handle anything. Basics of Buddhism, Pat Allwright, page 94. Nichiren Daishonin advises us, never let life's hardship disturb you. After all, no one can avoid problems, not even saints or sagas. Major Writings, Volume 1, page 161. I thank President Okada for always encouraging us to chant and do Ganyo, to overcome pain and suffering and attain true happiness in this lifetime. Thank you all for listening to my story. Keep chanting and you will overcome any obstacles that come your way.